Hello everybody, welcome to Untethered.tv, where we have casual conversations with mobile rock stars. As I like to say, every once in a while we actually pin down these mobile rock stars and beat the truth out of them. And I don't think we're going to have that problem today with Scott Kveton, who is the co-founder and CEO of Urban Airship. Just as I do, like, paint a little picture here, because this is an epidemic in the app world of what's going on right now for any app developer who's building applications for free or for a low price. And are finding that they can't live off of the revenue that they're generating from ads in the app or just from sales. And that's where Urban Airship comes in to help you facilitate this deeper conversation through the app, through the device, to maybe remind people to use your app and then perhaps to go and buy with their in-app purchasing. Scott, sometimes I get it right, sometimes I don't in those descriptions. I'm hoping that we can spend some time talking about Urban Airship and how it can benefit some of the people that are watching this, but also really focus deep down and try to understand how companies are making money in the app world by leveraging what it is that you guys do. Was that a fair description of what Urban Airship does?
That was great. We can put you to work anytime. You can.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about this problem, because as the app store, not only in Apple but in Android and BlackBerry as well, and RIM, starts to escalate the numbers. We're well over probably 500,000 to 600,000 applications available for multiple mobile devices. It gets harder and harder for companies to be found, and then once they're found, it gets harder and harder, obviously, for companies to generate revenue from the desktop. And
sure.
And this is a big problem, wouldn't you say? Absolutely.
I mean, we it's what we founded the company on. When we started this company about 18 months ago, we really sort of jumped in to solve some, simple developer pain points. We're an engineering-heavy shop here, and so that's kind of where we dove in. But very quickly, we've realized that there's a bunch of sort of key issues that folks are dealing with. One is around that engagement. How do you get users back into your app time and again and do it effectively? How do you monetize those apps over time with whether it's in-app purchase or subscription? Those kinds of things.
Yeah.
The other one is being able to scale across a variety of different platforms, and then finally tracking and reporting for all that.
So Scott, let's start from the very, very beginning of Urban Airship. I do want to touch on your entrepreneurial tendencies, but for those who are really interested in a great story about bacon, and as a Canadian, I have a deep affinity for bacon, check in Scott's LinkedIn profile. I'll put a link in the show notes here, because there's a great story in there where I guess it took 21 days to build a company and 6 months to write a book about building a company.
Yeah, I know. It's so ironic. Yeah, a couple of us got together and just said, geez, let's start something. We want to do something interesting. And we said, well, let's put a finite time limit on it. And so we sort of set a launch date that happened to be 21 days away. And we said, okay, well, we're going to build this full-blown website, everything, fulfillment, supply chain, all that stuff. And you find that when you have that amount of time, you sort of, make some design decisions that help you get there quicker. I won't say cut corners, but it was really fun. It was a total blast. We had such a great time doing it. And yeah, it's an interesting story.
So how did you go from bacon into this space? So you went from something shipping, real goods.
That's a natural, for me, it's I've 15 years in technology, and I cut my teeth at places like Amazon, and have been active in really, in the technology space for years around open source and open technology. I've really spent the last 15 years building internet scale, teams that build internet scale infrastructure.
Yeah.
And when we came together in May of 2009, one of my co-founders had this idea and just said, geez, I think there's something here. And again, in true form, much like we did with the bacon site, we said, geez, why don't we launch this really quickly? Because we don't know. There isn't a market here. We need to sort of guess. So the sooner we can ship something, the sooner we'll learn we're either wrong or we're right. And so I said, let's go live the first week in the first week in June, which was 30 days away. And the team was like, well, okay, we think we can do that. And that was what we started the company with. So we went down to WWDC.
So tell me, what was it about the industry? What was it that what made you realize that there might be a market? What was that gut feeling when you looked at this and thought, we can make a business here?
I think the big thing for me was, for years, mobile has been that technology that's cried wolf for the last, however many years. And the problem has been
10 years.
that,
it's been the year of mobile, right?
Exactly. and it was that stranglehold that the carriers had on the relationship with the customer. And when I saw Apple sort of, bust that up, and then Android come right behind it, and RIM, and you started to see this momentum happening that said, okay, mobile is really here now. So when we dug in, we realized there were a lot of pain points for these developers just in building their apps and effectively connecting them to the cloud and getting more out of that connection direct to the user's pocket. And so that's where we dove in, and that's where we took it from there.
So that was June of 09, or
June of 09 was it was WWDC, and they were announcing iOS 3.0. We had just come together. We had no funding. We were like funding it with savings and a credit card. And I didn't have a ticket to WWDC, but I said, "Geez, what a great event, right?" So I flew down there on a Sunday. I went to Costco and I spent about $1,500 on donuts and danishes, and then I piled them into the back of a cab around 5 a.m. and drove down to Moscone. And there's the line of people who start queuing at midnight to go to the Steve Note, right? And it's the perfect, it's a captive audience, exact target you want, because they're passionate developers and they're hungry. So I just literally stood in line. I didn't have a ticket, and that's, I handed out these danishes. I happened to run into a friend who was in line who helped me do it, and I had a little, handout card. And from there, we picked up a couple of our, to this day, some of our biggest customers in that line. That's where we picked up Tapulous, actually, and they actually ended up implementing us. They went live 7 days later, and we were the first app in the App Store, Tapulous's Tap Tap Revenge, to have push notifications. So it was one of those things that just because we went live that day, some of our other competitors announced that they were going to ship support for this.
Yeah.
We were live. Developers want to dig in, get their hands dirty, and we had that. Our website looked like crap, all those kinds of things, but the API worked and we had great documentation. That's all that mattered.
And you handed out $1,500 worth of donuts and danishes.
That's right, yeah.
Unbelievable.
That never hurts, right?
Well, I mean, there's a straight to an engineer's heart, obviously, is through their stomach, and especially after standing, the euphoria of waiting for Steve Jobs to do his keynote, and standing in lines, at least it wasn't freezing.
Yeah, it was totally fun.
So how different is the product today from that moment when you built it in those 30 days? Obviously, it's a little bit more refined, but same principles?
A lot of the same principles, but what we've realized as, originally it was for all these indie developers, folks in a garage who are cooking up an app. And now what we're finding is these large organizations, big companies, have serious things they want to do on mobile, and they want to turn to a company that has a full-blown platform, a set of solutions across these things that can help them translate their investment into mobile to, a big, put everything in the black on the P&L. Because to me, 2010 was about people dabbling in mobile, and 2011 is about, hey, it's time that this becomes part of the P&L. And so we're seeing, our bigger customers coming to us wanting not just what we do today, but they want to see our roadmap out 24 months because they're very interested in the direction of this stuff, because they don't want to have to build it. They know they're going to have to build certain parts, but if they can partner on it, they're going to do it.
It's funny. I snicker there because a roadmap of 24 months. I dare anybody to come up with a legitimate roadmap for the next 24 months in mobile. It changes.
No, I agree completely. But we've actually been what we've executed on everything in the last 18 months and shipped wanted, and now our customers, because they that's how they work. Whether it's Warner Brothers or Mashable or
The Guardian, or Newsweek,
Newsweek, those folks work on a different sort of time scale, and they want to be able to say, hey, I know this is going to be out in the next 24 months, and it'll change, it'll iterate over time for sure.
Well, for those people who don't know about Urban Airship or about what you guys do, give me the overview of give everybody the overview of what you guys do. So there's context to this conversation as we move forward into how people can benefit from having a little bit of a closer relationship with our customer in the app world.
Sure. So we have a mobile services platform. Developers will drop in an SDK that goes into their app, and then they have access to a set of different features, effectively, of the platform. They can access those through our web admin interface. But things like push notifications, Tapulous is a great example. They use it for in-game challenges, so sending challenges between users, and that gets people back into the app time and again. They also use it for broadcast notifications, notifying users when something interesting, some new content's available that they're interested in already. The other side, another one of the features that we offer is in-app purchase. So the ability to manage these transactions inside of the app itself. Now, Apple and Google just announced it for Android. Provide a certain level of service there already that you can use, but when you start talking about the workflow of a business, being able to do fix broken transactions or accounting or reporting, those kinds of things don't come baked in each of the platforms, and really they want to view across all of the platforms that we give them. The other pieces we're on iPhone, Android, and BlackBerry today. Will be on several other platforms here in the near future. Again, big folks like Warner Brothers and others, they just want to reach as many devices as they can, and they don't want to deal with the complexities of it. And then the last piece is we're going to be announcing some pretty cool stuff around tracking and reporting here at Mobile World Congress that we're really excited about. So it's great to do this messaging. It's great to be able to do in-app purchase or subscriptions and other things. You really want to see what users are doing what and how messaging is affecting them and how the content's being purchased and what they're doing with it. So we're going to have a lot of that coming out. We're really finding that we're moving from sort of this, we provide a basic level of services over to a much more data-driven company for our customers.
Well, that's pretty amazing. And one of the things that I looked at 2010 as the same way as you did. It was a lot of dabbling, and I think that there's still an education piece that is happening now. We're in the middle of this mobile industry, so what might seem like old news is to us is new news to a lot of people, and so there's a lot of education. But I see the transition happening because people are now talking about exactly what your platform is, the data side, the analytics, the impact that it's having, and they need to be able to report on these things. So we're seeing many more. I'm seeing, at least in my consultancy practice, is that I'm seeing a lot more companies coming and saying, "Well, that's great. We know it can help, but what we need now are numbers, so I can actually get budget to do it." And so that's kind of the shift in the mainstream. And I think that's the greatest part of what you guys offer, is that you get deep into the analytics.
Yeah, and it's even more than that, because we look at folks sort of compare what we're doing to maybe email marketing, right? And email marketing, you might blast out 250,000 emails that go into an inbox somewhere. Did I lose there? Okay, no. Sorry. My computer decided to fall asleep. Not a good time.
Sometimes I do as well. It's okay, Scott. We all do.
You might blast out these 250,000 emails that go into these inboxes. And with our solution, what we're finding our customers wanting to be able to do is, hey, I want to send a notification to this user at a specific local time.
Yeah.
Right. One of our print publishers, who's about to go live here in the next couple of weeks with subscriptions, has found that their iPad traffic goes up around 9 p.m. local time. And that's because people are kind of winding down for the day and settling into their iPad. Well, they want to send a notification around 8:30 local time saying, today's top story was this.
Yes.
So that when the user, brings up their tablet, they see this and it becomes top of mind. So those are the kinds of things. And the other thing that we're actually going to be able to do as well is, we have Living Social and Groupon as some of our customers, and they want to be able to send the daily deal at the most effective time.
Right.
While we won't share with them that maybe it's a fantasy sport user who sees lots of notifications, we will send a message at the right time so that the user isn't, in the midst of a whole bunch of other notifications. So, there's some pretty serious heavy lifting there from a data perspective.
Because you're setting that up individually, right? You're not setting it up to a group of people like, solicitors call at dinner time because they know you're going to be around the table. But that's not a convenient time. So you're almost personalizing it to the person. Then when's the best time for them to receive that notification?
Correct.
Yeah, that's incredible.
And super powerful for marketers. And again, the other big thing is being able to show sort of opt-out rates, right?
Yes.
If you send notifications out and people are opting out, you need to change your strategy, because when people, that's the worst thing that can happen, is somebody turning you off, right? Yes. So people have to be very careful about that conversation that they engage with their users. But the other thing that we'll be able to do as well is, auto-segment these users, whether it's by time zone, or this user has done an in-app transaction, or this user responds well to messaging. Those are all things that we can do automatically, so that then they can better target their mobile, user base.
It's pretty amazing, because we talk about how personal these devices have become. Yet we're still trying to port, and people are still having that conversation, comparing mobile to web. or
Yeah.
email to text, or email to notifications, and they're just not the same, right? Because of the way that this is so personal and always in context to what you're doing and the way you're thinking and how you interact with it. We kind of have to get over that web to mobile comparison, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, when you look at mobile, you've got this, you effectively have this full-blown computer that's in your pocket all the time. And, we think about the PC, and we think about, having a device that's like plugged into a wall that can't go anywhere, and it's a different usage pattern. So when we look at mobile, I think mobile is going to be significantly more disruptive to far more verticals and industries than the web or the PC ever was. Yeah. And for us, the real opportunity, we didn't want to be kind of a, try and do a single app ourselves. We really wanted to come in and be a pickaxe and shovel shop, become the folks people turn to. And that, when you talk about that sort of knowledge and the questions that people are having about mobile right now, when you go into a large organization, somebody's been tapped, the VP of mobile or director of mobile, they are tasked with making mobile go. And so they want folks like us who are working with, people who are succeeding at mobile, so they can learn from that. And more importantly, that, nobody ever got fired for, choosing Urban Airship. That's kind of
That's a perfect, nice. Well, I mean, it just seems like you hit on a theme there that I just want to talk about for 1 second. Is this kind of pieces of the puzzle? You guys are a platform, and there's a number of other platforms in different spaces. There's an SMS platform that allows you to just plug and play SMS stuff, and then there's a geolocation or a location-based service that allows you to plug in their data, and then you guys, Urban Airship, allows you to plug in this messaging and this direct connection to the customer. Is that really that's a trend that I'm seeing in mobile? That is a vestige of the web world, right? The open API, building mashups, and creating product. Do you think that this continues? Obviously, for these valuable, plugins like you guys offer.
Yeah, I mean, it's from day one, and this sounds pretty cliche, but we've always been a very customer-driven company. We actually take our roadmap out and share it with our customers and say, hey, is this stuff that you want? Yeah. And as we continue, they're not saying, hey, we want less of what you're doing. They want us to do more and more pieces of it. And to me, that says there's definitely demand there. And again, we're still in the early phases of this. I mean, really, the iPhone's been out for 3 years, and we still are, while, it's shipping a lot of devices, there's a lot more to get to 4 billion devices globally that are, effectively smartphones. And I think we'll get there in the next, 5 to 7 years, if not sooner. So it should be interesting, and I think that the platform play is a key one for us, and we're just trying to move as quickly as we can. I mean, this is part of the reason that we raised investment. We did 2 rounds of funding last year, and it's because we needed to keep up with this market and the customer demand. I mean, it's astounding. Yeah,
this isn't an industry that you take your time in building the company. You might be able to take your time growing once you've established yourself, but you have to get in there, start building, start growing, start communicating with customers and closing those deals and becoming the platform of choice, because somebody else is going to do that, and it's speed.
Yeah, for sure.
So let me ask you a question before we start to add some value to the listeners and the viewers. Can you talk about Warner Brothers and what you guys would be doing with Warner Brothers? Is that a good example of something that, because it is content, right?
Yeah, I mean, what they've done is they actually have a digital group over there that's tasked with effectively taking a lot of their existing properties and moving them over to mobile. A great example is Harry Potter. Yeah. They have the Harry Potter franchise, and they have a great app on the iPhone that's the Harry Potter Spells app. And it's basically, you move your finger around and you cast these spells, and it's an interesting, fun app. We partnered with them to provide support for in-app purchase. What they do is they have a free version that has some spells that come with it, but if you like it, you can buy more spell packs, so more, fancier ways of doing it. And what they're doing is then tying that to the release of the movies, where there's new spells that they're talking about actually in the movies. So you see this sort of cross promotion almost, and the movie gets people in their door, the app gets people in their pocket, right? And that's just so powerful. powerful for them as they develop a relationship. And we started with an app with them, and we're moving to a variety of other different features of the platform that they'll be using over the next 18 to 24 months.
Yeah. And are you finding that most of what you're doing right now is enabling the in-app purchases, or is it or unlocking pieces of an app, or are people leveraging what you're doing for content-based stuff, television shows? I know that you work with The Guardian, you work with Newsweek for subscriptions.
Yeah.
But what about video? Are you seeing any of that? We're seeing a lot about mobile video these days.
Yeah, I mean, it's we're helping manage effectively the entitlement process. So when you think about subscriptions, it's a time-based access to some kind of content. We may not power the actual video delivery, but what we do is help verify that user is valid. And that's it's actually a non-trivial problem. More importantly, having that sort of workflow in place for people to deal with subscriptions that got botched, or hey, the user wants to extend it beyond what they can normally do. All those kinds of things have been really, really effective.
Oh, okay. So we're seeing much more of that, and so it kind of leads us down this path. There was this great Read Write Web article that came out last week that obviously reported on that. Let me just pull it up here because it's so. The title of it, if you're looking for it online, and I'll include it in the show notes, is 26% of mobile apps used just once. And this, I don't think that this is shocking. Sometimes I think that maybe it's even more shocking that 26% are used, or 74% are used more than once. Right?
Yeah.
I'd like to see that curve after 2 and 3, because the whole idea with mobile applications is that you can make a very powerful application that you use every day. I use a gym app every single day because it's an effective tool. I use a location-based service every single day because there's value to me. So there are very few. I'd love to see, out of all the apps that are out there, how many are used more than 5 times a week. But you came out and said, you were quoted in this article saying that that there is only a 5% retention rate on free apps after 30 days. So that means that free apps, for the most part, 95% of all free apps are just basically discarded after 30 days. And I'm sure that happens in a very short period of time. That's a big problem if you're an app developer, I would say.
Yeah, it definitely is a big problem. And the key with, with our service, for example, with the push notifications, that first time they use it, they may be prompted, hey, would you like to receive these notifications? And if they say yes, that app publisher now has a hook into that user's pocket, and they have to be very careful how they use it. You can't just spam the user, because they'll turn you off and say bad things about you, and that's the last thing that you want. But getting onto the device is extremely interesting. We had some of our customers even this year and the year previous would go free in the App Store right around Christmas time, around December 18th. And just to give you an idea in terms of just the growth, they'd go free because they want to be #1 in the App Store
in their category.
Christmas Day, right? Because then everybody's opening up their iPod Touches, their iPads, their iPhones for Christmas, and you see this just explosion in use. Our December, we saw a 3x increase in the number of new devices that we saw over the month before.
Yeah,
and we're talking about we're on over 100 million devices now. And so you see that's a pretty significant growth. And we think the same thing is going to happen with when the Verizon phone starts shipping. And we're definitely telling our customers the same thing, to think hard about that.
So I mean, when you look at this problem, maybe it's not a problem. Maybe I can't believe that 95% of the applications out there are crap. There's a lot of it out there, but certainly this is a challenge now, because especially in the case of Apple, you picked an interesting platform because it's closed enough. It's secluded enough so that there's a gate to get in, so the apps aren't terrible. They might not be useful, but they're not terrible, or they're not going to be disruptive to your device. However, there's a layer of anonymity between the app developer and Apple and the iPhone. I don't know who's using my app. I can't directly email or market to them. The only thing I can do to them, communicate with them, the only way I can communicate with them is through the app. So obviously, big void right there, because you don't own your customer.
Yeah, and then there's that to me is one of the big issues for 2011, and it's really the main sticking point around what's happening with subscriptions and print publishers today.
Yes, right now.
What I think is interesting is, the print publishers, I don't think really care so much about the billing relationship. What they really care about is they want to know a little bit more about those customers. And that's actually one of the pieces that we're adding to our platform, is the ability to effectively segment your audience. Right? We'll be able to tell you based on the apps that they have installed. We're very careful about privacy, and we never share any personal information, but we will be able to say things like, hey, 27% of your app base is this demographic, right? And that is extremely interesting to our print publisher partners and anybody who's doing anything on mobile. So I think we're going to see more and more pressure from the app publishers, especially big business, who have built up effectively an equity stake in these platforms. They want to be able to know that they can get access to these users, or at least understand what's there, because it makes the platforms more robust for advertising, sponsorships. I mean, you name it, right?
Do you think that, knowing that kind of data, just from a general sake, which is, you don't know my name, but you know that I'm male, I'm in my 40s, I like the New York Yankees, and I follow the Ottawa Senators in hockey. It's that kind of demographic where you're building a composite picture. What do you think that the publishers, especially, a lot of talk over the last couple of days, maybe 7 days, about Rupert Murdoch and the Daily, and leverage, taking an old medium format, putting it onto the iPad, and trying to, jam a newspaper into an iPad. Your customers like Newsweek or Guardian, who have tailored content to their magazines, are they hoping to leverage the data that you provide in order to be able to then tailor a little bit more of an experience for their mobile play? Is that the end game, you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, today when you look at traditional print subscribers, if you're getting the newspaper or the magazine at your house, they have your address, right? And from that, they can gather quite a bit of interesting demographic data, right? And that's the magic for them. Yep. That's why they subsidize these subscriptions so much. That's why you get, such a cheap subscription to any of these folks. And so I think we're still in the early phases of this, and people are trying to take the existing business model and apply it to mobile, and it's not a one-to-one mapping, because you have a much better understanding of things like when they're reading it, what they're reading, where they are, right? So now you can start to tailor things like sponsorships and advertising to that user specifically. And while it's not part of the platform today, it will be very soon. Right. And to me, that is what's really, really, really interesting. Yeah.
And what about this? Grey's Anatomy did this thing last week during their show, which was they had their Grey's Anatomy app that allowed them to interact with the television show that was going on, and I think it was to facilitate a deeper relationship with their viewer, but it was also obviously to push more ads and generally have another way to generate revenue from that interaction. Do you see a lot more of that happening for what you guys are doing as well? Is that especially that crossover?
I got a call from Sky TV out of Sweden, and they were doing the presidential election there, and they were using our notifications during the news show. They had a bunch of users with their app installed out there, and what they wanted to do is they wanted to have the world's fastest exit poll. So when the polls closed at 12:01, they sent out this mass notification to everybody, and they got like a 32% response rate. And from that, they were able to say, look, we know we're going to project that this is the winner for the election.
Wow.
And to me, that is what's really cool. Like the notifications that we send out go out in milliseconds, right? To, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of users. So imagine if a marketer could, during a sporting event, hey, there's a timeout. Great. Hey, this is a perfect time to get some feedback from users right now. And so giving them that dashboard that allows them to send that notification out, and then very, very quickly see the response rates, means you can do some really, really interesting interactive stuff now.
Boy, could you ever.
So super exciting stuff.
So even we're a day away from a day past the Super Bowl, and if you go to I think it's foxsports.com/ads, they have all the ads from all of the Super Bowl ads. However, if you wanted to vote for your favorite ad, you had to go to foxsports.com/ads to vote for your favorite ad, up or down. Certainly something like this could have been leveraged in order to be able to vote it for an ad that's on TV at that moment. Do you like it or not, right? To get an immediate sentiment.
What's really interesting is we one of the other parts of our notification platform, we actually have an inbox that developers can integrate directly inside of their apps. So the idea there is, I may send lots of notifications. I want to be able to see what I was sent there.
Yep.
But more importantly, I want to drive users into actionable content, whether it's HTML, it's video, it's a poll, whatever. So we call this our rich push.
Yep.
And the idea there is to be able to send, you could send a notification saying, hey, this ad just played, during this commercial break.
Yep.
Which ad of the ones that played during the break was your favorite? Oh. And instantaneously, you'll not only be able to see how many users went in and actually did it, you'll see what they voted, and then be able to show that, at the next commercial break or, whatever.
Whenever.
People would love that, right? Yeah. People would love to get that instant feedback of how those ads did. It's like, exit polls for ads.
Yeah. Well, exactly, exit polls for ads. It's a perfect example. There's an app in there somewhere. Certainly,
yeah.
It goes far because, publishers today, whether it's print, some of your customers, whether it's digital or traditional news or magazines, traditional media companies like Warner Brothers, traditional television stations or broadcasters, they really have to bridge that gap now between what they're doing on that and their mobile play, because if they don't, there's serious. They're being attacked on all fronts. TV's not going to go away, but you certainly want to make sure that it remains relevant. You got a mass audience. You might as well tap into that.
Yeah, I think again, 2010 to me was people kind of nervous about it, and what we're finding now is folks like Warner Brothers and people who have existing channels and connections to customers, to users, whether it's via a record label or their TV channel or their movie. Hey, if I get them in front of one of my screens, I need to get in front of all of their screens. So can I get onto their mobile device? Can I, so leverage your existing channels and the audiences that you have to get into other channels, ideally mobile.
Yeah.
And I think it's very effective to folks who are doing it correctly.
So now, switch our attention now to the app maker who is kind of mired. They're in the long tail. Way down in that bottom left or bottom right quadrant, so far away from the top 100 apps in their category, and frustrated and sad right now, but still with a good user base. And I've talked to some developers who are angry that they only got 10,000 downloads. And I think go back 5 years ago. Did you ever think a product that you would create would end up on 10,000 in front of 10,000 people? That's incredible. So now, what are some ideas, some best practice? What can we leave them with today? Some takeaways that they can actually start to go out and leverage this technology to be able to bring some more customers in, generate some more revenue, get back to the innovating side other than not eating Kraft dinner and living in their parents' basement.
There was a great report that came out. I can't remember the link. I'll forward you the link though. Sure. But it showed that the statistic was 1.34% apps in the iOS and the App Store, the Apple App Store, support in-app purchase, but they generated 30% of the total App Store revenue.
It's insane.
So what that means is there's a tiny group of people who've figured out that formula, and they're very, very successful. I think that having a free app is a big one. Even 99 cents is a price point that a lot of folks don't want to sort of they don't want to go there.
It's an inconvenience, right?
It's an inconvenience, and if you can get on the device and then through notifications be able to engage those users, and then you have some means of an upsell, whether it's through advertising or it's through in-app purchase, subscriptions, you name it. There's something very, very interesting there, and so that's definitely what we suggest to the indie developers that we have. And we've got somewhere north of 6,000 customers now, and a lot of those are those indie developers, and they're all trying to find ways that they can monetize more effectively. But to me, at the end of the day, mobile is all about distribution. How do you get onto those devices? And that's the real pain point. So the easiest way to do that is to be free.
Is to be free, and then start to figure out. A lot of people are free, but then they don't have enough value at the other end to charge. So.
Yeah, and that's a tough one. I know it sounds again kind of cliche, but you have to actually talk to your customers. You have to hear what they're saying, and we have from the day that we started this, we were active in IRC and on Twitter and other places, listening to what our customers were saying, and we've definitely had to kind of tweak our products accordingly. We thought like we had something we really figured out and we think it's really great, but then users go, yeah, we don't want to use it that way. And you're like, oh, well then that's not the way we should do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And so, I have a great example of an app that I just can't get out of my head because it's so, maybe I'm missing something, but here's a perfect example of an application that should never have been built, but it's free. It's the Toyota app. I don't know if you've seen this, and I wrote an article about this because they built a shopping tool for Toyota cars. And then here's a perfect example of a company that might not get mobile.
Yeah.
And I'm being polite here because maybe at some point Toyota wants to, sponsor this podcast. But I'm about to ruin that. They built an app to shop for cars. So you can go to the Toyota app, you can download it, and you can see what kind of cars and makeup, and you can customize your own car, and you can do all this stuff. But and as a side, there was even a comment in by some avid Toyota person who works for Toyota. It says at some point maybe we'll actually do online purchasing or mobile purchasing, which I thought you clearly don't get it.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna spend $30,000 from a mobile app, and yet it'll happen, but not right now, and not on a car. Sure, you can do all that, but what they don't get is that that's an engagement. I buy a car every 8 years, right? 8 years. So you want to create something that not only, and this goes for the lesson for app developers who are at that long tail, is that if your app isn't something that is engaging enough for people to want to open or be engaged with, then even in-app notification or in-app purchases or subscriptions aren't going to do you a lot of good, right? It's still the business model has to be sound. Am I right with that?
Absolutely, and I think that in the case of Toyota, we've seen it with lots of other brands. You have to understand that it's not about replicating the web or your website. What you're trying to do is engage in a conversation. I mean, again, I've been saying that kind of over and over again, but
it's okay. Repetition that's what it takes, man.
Yeah. It's really a tool to rebrand the user, right? You want them thinking of Toyota, top of mind, and whether it's even like what if they did like curated content that's user generated through the app, right? That might be interesting. Things that people are discussing,
Hey,
or
Scott, what if they did this? What if they did this? If they tied it to your VIN number and sent you notification when you needed an oil change,
right?
Using Urban Airship, so that kind of stuff, I get it.
Hey, by the way, your 50,000 mile tune-up is due, and hey, you know your location. So here's the 3 closest dealers that you could go to. Oh, by the way, this one has an open bay today.
Yes.
Right? I mean, that's it's non-trivial to do, but most of the pieces are there to make this happen. Like the notifications, the data about open bays, all those things are there, and that is useful and one of those things that just gets users coming back. And you can bet a user who uses that app and finds it effective is going to buy Toyota forever.
100%. You're locked in. So, I mean, do you have a great example of somebody who's doing this right that you guys are working with, or that you've seen out there that you'd like to work with, for example?
Geez, that is a good question. Off the top of my head, that's a toughie.
I don't mean to put you on the spot, Scott.
No. It's we work with. I mean, there's we do have a bunch of like our larger customers who we can't necessarily name, but they're really really effective at what they do. And I'll just say a large sports network has been really effective with their free apps and sending notifications. Yes. Sports fans, there's no such thing as too much information. We break down the number of notifications that we send per user. For these folks, it's astounding.
Really,
but for them, they monetize through other means, right? It may not be the app. It's because they're a fantasy, sport user, or they're coming back to the site, or they can charge higher CPMs because it's, Sunday game day. You have a lot of people in the apps. So to me, that's, again, one of those thought leadership things and keeping users rebranded time and time again. But I love the Toyota idea. I mean, that's just a no-brainer.
Well, I mean, it just I keep thinking about this, and it's time to get over this Me Too thing of just having an app. You've got to start to add value to your end user.
Yeah.
So the takeaways that I get here is obviously free is very effective. I mean, the desktop on these things is a challenge because it's not just good enough to get on it anymore. It's you got to get on it and stay out of the folders, right?
Yeah.
And you got to be on the front page or something like that as a result of this. So distribution is key, and that's what we've seen a lot of successful companies. And then you start to talk about what's the best model for me to be able to turn that into revenue. So some will go with advertising, some will go with subscription based if the content is of value, or there's a demand for it, obviously. Some will go with just added layers in app purchasing. I love what Angry Birds has done. With that eagle, if you can't solve it, you can buy that. You can buy a perfect score for that level. It's the lazy person, right? But all they're trying is these experiments that once you've got a captive audience, that you shouldn't. If you've got 10,000 downloads, you're not going to give up on them. You should be able to turn that into some way to generate another dollar. I think that we're still experimenting with that at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we're big fans of failing faster.
Yeah.
How quickly can you learn from your mistakes or your wins, right?
Yep.
I've talked to folks who are like, oh, I've been working on this app for 12 months and I can't wait to launch. I'm like, God, just ship it. Get it out. Ship it broken.
12 months.
But do something, do anything, get it out there. So, yeah.
Okay, and so any other piece of advice that you'd like to hand off to people as they're embarking in mobile app development and trying to figure out how to make revenue from this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that this whole concept of failing faster is a huge one.
Right.
But the fact is that mobile is such a new thing now. It's not mobile like it was before. It's a whole new world, and anything that you can do to get more data to learn about mobile, whether it's for your company or for your own personal app or whatever, you now start to get insight that no one else has, and you have to figure out how you can use that insight to be either a better app or integrate more fully into your company's workflow. And that's what we're finding. The more data that we gather, the more interesting things we can actually learn from it that we can then expose back to our customers.
Yeah.
And
it's a big whiteboard, right? I mean, that's what this industry is right now. It's anything goes. You can try anything, and as you said, fail fast. But oftentimes you'll find something that is less of a failure because there's a hole in the market. You can fill it out. Even as something as simple as your YouTube video that you showed notification of pills. It's your new pill box, and those kind of examples. Although they seem so simple, are very powerful when they come from a mobile device.
Yeah, without a doubt.
This is great. So, Scott, where can people find out a little bit more information about you guys? UrbanAirship.com, obviously.
UrbanAirship.com is the best place. Shows all of our products. We have our developer documentation there. You can sign up for an account and kind of play around. And we have a couple, pretty exciting announcements coming out in the next couple weeks. We're very, very excited about. And
so people can get engaged with you guys for free, can't they?
Yeah. We have a model it's a freemium model. So on the notification side, we actually offer 1 million free notifications a month for
That's incredible.
For us, it's it's our roots are with the developer community, and so we always want to make sure that we give back to especially the indie developers.
Yeah.
We do send quite a few notifications. We just passed 2 billion notifications, and we passed 1 billion notifications in, I think, October.
Yeah.
So it's the pace is
accelerating.
Without a doubt. So
one last question before I let you go, Scott. Urban Airship. Is there a story behind the name?
So one of my co-founders is just an airship fanatic, not blimps. Airships.
That's right. They're not called blimps. Yeah.
Do not call them blimps.
Okay.
But we literally were, it was in that 30 days of starting the company, and we had to come up with something.
Perfect.
And I'm like, I am not a name person. He's like, God, can we name it something with airship? And I'm like, if you find a domain name and a decent name, I'm all for it. And I think I got the IAM at like 2:30 in the morning. He's like, I found it. And
Urban Airship.
Urban Airship. It works, and it actually is playing really well. People. It's this whole idea of sort of navigating the cloud when it comes to mobile, and that's really kind of where the airship fits in, and it's kind of nostalgic and all that kind of stuff. But we're having fun playing with it for sure.
Well, that's good. So UrbanAirship.com. I've been speaking with Scott Kveton, who is the co-founder and CEO of Urban Airship, and look, I really appreciate how candid you've been, Scott, and everything that you've imparted on us, and all the best. Good luck with what you're doing. Obviously, these notifications are going to become like dial tone, and all the best for your success with Urban Airship.
Thanks for having me on today, Rob. I appreciate it.
It was absolutely my pleasure.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for watching, everybody.